Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart. I'm Lisa Granger, and today we continue our Christmas series, The Promises of Christmas, with Pastor Dean Woodward of Eastside Church. We're talking about Christ in the fire, the story of the three men in the fiery furnace, and how Jesus walks with us through our own fiery trials. In a world filled with pressures, idols, and distractions, Pastor Dean reminds us that God is better than anything we could bow to. Stay with us as we explore the promise of His presence even in the hardest moments. Welcome to A Woman's Heart. I am looking forward to what I know is going to be a delightful conversation. We are blessed to have with us the lead pastor, Dean Woodward from Eastside Church here in Williamsburg. And thank you so much for joining us today, Dean.
It's a blast to be here.
Yes, we have already had a wonderful conversation about all sorts of things and looking forward to continuing our conversation about Christmas today. But first of all, I would love to get to know you and let my audience get to know you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourself and something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Oh, well, thank you. I have been a pastor for almost 40 years.
Okay.
So that's a long time.
So that means you're at least 41.
I refuse to answer that on the grounds it may incriminate me. Yes, I have 3 kids and 7 grandkids. I grew up in this area, Virginia Beach, Norfolk.
Yes.
Went to Norfolk Christian School from 1st to 12th grade. I think I've served at 5 or 6 different churches. I think the funny thing would be, and I'm reminded because right here on Richmond Road, in college, I used to work for a landscaper here called Four Seasons Landscape.
Oh,
and we actually put the sidewalk in for St. Bede's when St. Bede's used to be right across on Richmond Road. And we did aggregate concrete around those stones, those sacred stones they had in there. But when I was working for that guy's company one day, we were burning out ground bees. So we were pouring gas from a gas can, and some of the holes were burning, and I had the gas can in my hand.
Uh-oh.
And the fire came zooming over up into the gas can while I was holding it. And so I turned and threw it and started to run. And the guy behind me on the crew was a fireman. He goes, run, run. And then he goes, roll. Well, I did the worst thing and ran. And my peripheral vision showed the flames were on my back.
Oh,
and then it just went out. And my back was soaked with sweat. And I always look back on that and think, man, I should have been just burned to crisp. But it just went out. So it was a cool thing, but those stories come back to me when I'm down here on Richmond Road, remembering that was college just 40 years ago. So
yeah, just a couple years ago. Oh, well, yeah, okay. That's the first person on fire.
Yes, I was on fire.
I've had. You're my first
He was
guest
on fire.
that has literally been on fire before. But that is a great lead-in because we're talking about Daniel.
I seriously did not even make that connection, but there you go. Hey,
yes.
it's working.
Yes, that's a great lead-in because we're talking about Daniel and the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 3, and the man in the fiery furnace. So, yeah, that's a great lead-in. And I told you I was going to ask you this. You had, with our Christmas series, we're looking at how Jesus was present all throughout the Old Testament, coming into Christmas. It didn't just start in the manger. It started way back, bits and pieces and glimpses of Jesus and foreshadowing and prophecy of him. And you had a couple of options. Why did you want to talk about Daniel chapter 3?
Well, it's a great picture of Jesus that really struck me when I've studied it, when I've taught it, and it stands out. I think, like you were saying earlier when we were talking, those pictures are so vivid from the Old Testament that mean a lot now.
Yeah.
That was the word back then that they had. That was their whole Bible, and it's forever true. It's forever real, So even though we have a lot more revelation, that imagery of Jesus walking in that fiery furnace with those 3 guys sticks with me. It's a picture that relates to how I should appreciate or why I appreciate Jesus every day and ultimately. And I love the story with those guys pulled away from their homes and stuck into Babylon where their names were changed, their diet was changed, and there's this huge pressure cooker to change their faith, but they didn't. They were young, smart, they were the best of the best, but they were godly. And so they hung on to their faith. Then the first chapter, they wouldn't eat the food. And then they ended up being blessed as a result and promoted. And then after about 20 years of having the wealth and the pleasures, the pressures, all the things of a secular culture around them, they're still very, very devoted. So they wouldn't eat the food, and now they're not going to bow to the statue. So I think I'm really drawn to, we live in Babylon, we live in the midst of a place where we need Jesus to preserve us. And so I think those are the things that drew me to that picture and to why I love Jesus and why I'm very passionate for him today.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned they were very much steeped in a culture surrounded by a lot of wealth, a lot of other kind of gods. And even if we may not have a pantheon of other gods in our culture, we have a lot of other idols, I think.
Totally.
We may not have golden calves or Molech or with some of the other ones that were going on then, but we definitely have a lot of other idols and other religions that we're living around and trying to work around and try to hopefully get along with. But it's very easy to compromise and kind of blend into the culture and not necessarily look very different from anyone else. So that's when you talk about they were the best of the best, and the Babylonians did that on purpose. They did that very much on purpose to get the best and the brightest and bring them to Babylon and not kill them. They wanted to use them and then basically convert them to their culture and indoctrinate them into that culture. And we do have to be very careful, I think, as Americans, because we are so easily surrounded by ease and wealth compared to some other countries, not all countries, but in other ones where if they're Christian, in some cases they're even more persecuted, or they're not as tempted to give in to the wealth and the rich side of compromising. And that was one of the themes when I was looking at it that came up, that idea of compromise and how easy it is to do.
Right. And so sometimes you think about the things they refused, and that seems negative. I'd like to think about why they refused it was what they were so committed to. They were asked to bow, and they said, no, I'm not, even if God doesn't rescue me, I'm not going to bow to this image. And so we think, okay, they couldn't eat the food in chapter 1, and they didn't bow to the image. And it's like, the reason they wouldn't bow was because they already had something in that place. They were already worshiping something so much more wonderful. And so they would be willing to be martyred. I consider them at least on the level of martyrs, even though they don't end up dying. I think if you're cast into a furnace for your faith, you at least have the honor of being considered in that category. And
they were willing, and they were thrown into the fire.
And so in my mind, I think, well, when's that going to happen to me? Well, it's like, God is that good. He's better than our life. He is the best, so we should love him the most. The first and greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And so you're right. Anything that comes in the way or in the place of that is an idol. And I think those things come along regularly, and God will not bless them when they're in his place. No. It's like, if this is my competition, I'm not going to bless it. But if it's second, I would. If you love me first, then I could bless your, material life or your marriage or your children. But if those things are first, then it's going to be a struggle. So you see these guys, they have this amazing love for God to where they won't eat the food, they won't compromise. And this is just one big example. Nebuchadnezzar comes along and says, all right, and everybody's doing it. Everybody else would prefer not to go in the fiery furnace. Because this is the thing, they're taken out on the plain of Dur and they're told to bow to this 9, 10-story image. And if they don't, they're going to be thrown into a fiery furnace. And everybody does it when the music plays, except these 3. Daniel's back in Babylon. He's not out on the plain. So it's just these 3 friends of his. And when they don't bow, that's noticed. It's reported back to the king. He comes because of their favor and their stature. He gives them a second chance. And when he does, that's when they make the famous statement of refusal. King, we believe our God will save us from the fiery furnace, but even if he doesn't, we will not bow to the image. And so you have songs about, there's a famous worship song now that's out about that, but it brings up, I think this is a deep seriousness that comes into the story, that this is life or death. And it reminds you, for many, they usually die in these instances.
They do.
Most times the secular culture succeeds in killing, and they're called martyrs. And that even happened for Jesus. And Jesus ended up having to die and was killed. And so many of our brothers and sisters, probably more in the last 100 years than in all of church history combined, as people all around the world today are making this choice. There are brothers and sisters, we'll see them in heaven one day. And you look at them and you just think, wow, you're reminding me that Jesus is better than my life.
Yeah.
And I had one die that I knew, his brother in college. His name was Chris Bitterman. He was on my hall. And his brother, Chet, was killed down in Colombia, South America by the M19 guerrillas. And he was a missionary down there, and he was taken, and then they tried to get Wycliffe to pay ransom, and they wouldn't. And so they shoot him in a flag, and they find him in Bogota in a burned out bus. And our whole school was going through that because Chris was right there. And we talked to Chris, and he said, Chet, he's just like any of us. He's not some superhero, So the martyrs, the disciples were all killed, for their faith. If you look in the Gospels, they're not perfect people. They're just very real, struggling folks. But it's not because they're so good. We tend to put them on a pedestal. It's because the one they love is so good. It's like, hey, Jesus is so good that he's worth dying for. He's better than even my life. I have to give up my life. I'll do it. Why? Because I'm a hero? No, because Jesus is that good. He's worth loving first, or most.
First loving most.
Yeah. So anyway, I think when they come up to this and then make that refusal, we think of the martyrs. Because they look like they were going to be. But then that's where the story turns, and what happens is so surprising. And the image is not one where they're going to be martyred. The image is they're going to be preserved in the fire. They don't burn up. So they're looking down, and it was a sick thing that Nebuchadnezzar got so angry after they refused a second time that he heated the furnace up 7 times hotter, and they could look down in a window and see these victims when they were put in. And so as soon as they're thrown in, first of all, the guards that throw them in are burned up. So that's a powerful picture too, that the ones who are killing the martyrs aren't avoiding their ultimate judgment either. Then the real miracle starts to happen when they look through the window and they realize these guys that were bound are unbound, and they're walking around. Oh, and there's a fourth guy.
Yeah,
how did he get in there?
There's let's do a math problem here. How many people went into the fire? 3. How many people were seen in the fire? 4. How many came out of the fire? 3.
Yeah.
This math does not compute.
And that's our whole picture of Jesus. He's that fourth guy.
Yes.
Who is that guy is the question. And Nebuchadnezzar is interesting because when he sees that they're fine and they're walking around, and he calls to the 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or actually their original names were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He calls them out, but he doesn't call that fourth guy because he wouldn't dare, because that is actually Christ, Jesus, the King of Kings. So he outranked Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar would not tell him what to do.
Yeah.
And in fact, his presence was the thing that saved those 3 guys as they walked. So that they came out not even smelling like smoke.
Yeah, I love that part.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I love that part of thinking about going through the fires and backing up just a little bit. You talked about but even if he doesn't, the whole idea is they had every faith in the world that God was capable of saving them. But they said, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to. And it said their faith was in God alone, and not in whether he delivered them or not.
Oh, that's good.
And so many times, and I have been very guilty of it, we're going through a trial and we're like, oh, God, save me. God, fix this problem. And then if it doesn't turn out the way we want it to, then we get mad at God. Well, you didn't do what I wanted.
Right.
And to be able to say, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to worship you. I'm going to just bow down to you and your sovereignty, and whatever it is, may it bring you glory, even if it doesn't turn out the way I want. And I've recently spoken to someone, they had a 4-year-old who died of a brain tumor. And you're like, okay, Lord, how does that, how can you still, it's hard. It's hard. But then as you're talking about, he is so much better than anything else we could experience here on earth. And he is still worthy of praise, even going through the fire. And the idea that they weren't delivered from the fire, they were delivered through it.
Yeah.
And I love that image of when they come out, they don't even smell like smoke. smoke.
Right.
And that when we can walk with Jesus through whatever fiery trials we are going through, no matter how horrible, tragic, wrong they may be,
Right.
when we can walk through it with him, we can, if we let him work through it and give him glory,
Right.
we can come out with maybe some scars, but not even smelling like smoke.
Yeah.
That's one
No,
of my
that's
favorite
awesome.
things.
And I love I think it was Beth Moore that did the 3-option thing on this teaching where she talked about option A was if you had cancer. Option A would be, God, take the cancer away and totally heal me. Option B would be, you're going to go through it and you're going to do chemo, but you're going to go into remission. Option C would be, you're going to die, but through that, you're going to be ultimately healed in God's presence in heaven. So she was trying to bring out, they were thinking probably A or C. They were thinking, God, you're either going to deliver us by not having us have to go in there, or maybe the fire goes out, something like Elijah and the prophets of Baal, or you're going to take away, or we're actually going to get thrown even if, and we're going to die. So, but what they didn't realize was B, was the middle option, which was, God is going to preserve you through it. And so this is what the story takes us. And I think this has huge implications ultimately and every day. So in my mind, when I think about Jesus preserving them in fire, I can't help, I didn't even mean to use the fire thing to start with, but fire is the theme, okay?
Yeah,
Jesus
it is.
and fire. Because
Yes.
to me, Jesus is the thing that preserves us in the fire. So when it comes to our ultimate judgment, here's the way to put it. Nebuchadnezzar could take them, could bind them, could throw them in the furnace, but then he couldn't control after that. And so that's a powerful picture where Jesus says, don't be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So for those of us who know Jesus, all they can do is kill our bodies. So even the martyrs, for instance, they can't go beyond that to the ultimate judgment, okay? The ultimate judgment, which Jesus himself talked about, is literal fire. I mean, he talked about it being in fire, and the only way that we're preserved in that judgment is through Christ. Now, I know that is not a popular thing to talk about, but it's all through the Bible. And I think when we avoid it or don't think about it, we forget why Jesus had to die. We forget why he's so wonderful. One of the biggest things he does for us is save us from the ultimate fire of judgment. And so we start with that, at least as, oh my gosh, Jesus, you're the one who saved me from that ultimate destiny. And really all the people, like I tend to feel sorry all through history. You feel sorry for those who are martyred, but really we should feel sorry for the ones who kill the martyrs.
Yeah.
Because like all these people in this story, they didn't avoid the fiery furnace ultimately.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, they may have avoided that one.
And everybody who
but
does it, like martyrs go to their reward. But those who kill martyrs don't. They don't. They ultimately still face a judgment.
Yeah.
And only Christ can deliver us from that. So that is a huge thing to thank Jesus for and appreciate him for.
Oh, yeah.
When that fire comes, I will come through it and won't even smell like smoke. Because of you, not because of me.
Yeah. Not because I did such a great job with my laundry.
Exactly.
That will have absolutely nothing to do with it. And I thought of verse Isaiah 43:2, and it said, "When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned."
Yeah.
And so that whole walking through us, because for me, when I was looking at and studying it for a little bit, the two themes that really kind of stood out to me were this idea of compromising or trusting God with the outcome, no matter what it is, and then the idea that Jesus walks through us. And I like when you said the A, B, or C, I kind of likened it more to option A was they were going to be delivered, didn't have to go to the fire. Option B, they die. C was just other. Because
I like that.
We just
the unexpected.
Yeah, because
the unpredictable.
Jesus doesn't do it the same way twice.
He doesn't.
He really doesn't. Even when you look at how he healed people, there were some where he said, just go, it's done from afar.
Right.
There's some that he touched and they were healed. Some he spit and did spit mud. And you're like, okay, well, that's kind of gross. But if it makes me see again, then so what? In some, he sends them to wash, or in other healing things, they're
That's
told
true.
to go wash in
So many
a
different
river
things.
and dip 8 times. Well, why 8? What's magical about that, or
Yeah.
however many times he had to dip. It wasn't just once. So he does it differently every time. And so I think when we expect, we go, oh, well, he saved this way one time, so I want the same thing. Chances are it's not going to be
We
the
can't
same.
compare our experiences because they're unique.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, they
it's
really are.
confusing when you hear someone's testimony or someone's experience if you think it's going to be the same, because God deals with us all differently. The results should be similar. You know, that we have faith, that we bear the fruit of the Spirit, but not the experience. The experience would be unique. He called all the prophets in the Old Testament differently, depending on their personalities.
Yeah.
And everybody has a different experience or a different story. That's true. I love then to go to Jesus in our fire, not just in judgment, but every day in life is in the fire.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then you compare it to these guys, they were already preserved in Babylon. Like that is a picture of them already being preserved in Babylon in that pressure cooker of changing their name, changing their diet, making them bow down, all these pretty girls around, I'm sure. You can imagine the power they had, the money they had. And here they are, they stay pure for 20 years now since they had first come. And this story is a picture of how Jesus preserved them. And so we take that to our life and we're like, man, the world every day. And I think of it this way. We can't do anything until we're saved, you know? Like, I'm in the fires, or it was the same with Daniel in the lion's den. It's like, I might want to have my devotions today. I might want to write in my journal today. I might want to be nice to... You aren't going to do anything until you get saved from those lions. You aren't going to do anything until you don't burn up in this, you know? And so Jesus comes to us every day and he says, really the first thing you need from me is salvation. From what? From the temptations of the world, from the persecution and the suffering in the world, from the, all the addictions and idols that will come, the distractions. We are living in to change the figure, it's radioactive. And I know the longer I live in this world, there is an adverse effect. I've been around this evil world longer and longer and longer. It's not, it gets to you even more. And so we just need to be preserved or saved like that picture before we can do anything. We have to first, I recommend that, like I want to meet Jesus in the fire. One day that'll be gone. I'll be with him in heaven forever. But won't that be a great memory to say, hey, I remember when there used to be that fire and there was death and distraction and all these horrible things that would have destroyed me. And Jesus, you walk with me then. And we shared that experience. And I don't like fire, but I like Jesus.
I like a nice warm fireplace.
I do.
Or a bonfire, as long as I'm a comfortable, safe distance, just to get the warmth from it, not too
and
too
Jesus
close
can
to
make
be in
that
it.
difference. He makes that difference where that's great. He turns a fire that could destroy you into a fire that could warm you. And the biggest thing, as a pastor, I've gone into some of the darkest things, and the ultimate consolation is Jesus is also there.
Yeah.
I remember one dad in a church that I was serving in another state. One morning, just took his life. His little girl found him. And I was called over within 2 hours, and the cops had just left, and the fire department. And his mother, he was her only child, was sitting in the kitchen. And she looked at me and she said, what can you possibly tell me to make me feel better? That was her opening question. Now, that is like the ultimate... They never trained me to answer that question. I never would ever want to be in that position. That's one of the darkest places in the world. What would you say going into that situation? And then all I can tell you is, what else happened there that shocked me? Jesus was in that kitchen. We sat there. I didn't know what to say, but we ended up having an hour and a half conversation that didn't make her feel better. And then we did a funeral 3 days later. And I said the same things that we talked about at the kitchen table at that service, and it brought comfort. And so I thought, life gets really horrible, but the ultimate consolation is Jesus is also there. And to put yourself between his love and the hurt, you get to experience him as his love passes through you to the hurt, Yeah. And so it's not just the hurt or just the fire, it's Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's where the passion comes from, is regardless of the mess or the difficulty. Or I'll go with a couple in counseling that I've been meeting with for a while, and I think, oh, they're not hearing me. They're not getting better. I'm tired. I don't even want to meet with them today. And then when I get in the office, it's like Jesus loves them.
Yeah.
And I'm not just getting them. They're not just getting me. We're all experiencing Jesus. And as a result, there is an invigoration that comes, even in a very dysfunctional situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and how beautiful it is that, kind of then looking forward into Christmas, because this is going to be aired during Christmas. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're
Right.
looking at Christ in the Old Testament, looking forward to him actually coming down, as that has these glimpses that we know he's going to walk through us. And then that gift of him coming as a little baby and then being here on and experiencing all those things, those fires, those trials, as we would experience them as humans, and knowing that he just gets to walk right beside us and experience those same things and know how we feel about it, what it physically feels like, because he probably, I don't think, as the man in the fiery furnace, he really felt the flames.
No.
But as a human,
They were walking around. They were fine.
yeah, they were just
talking.
fine. But walking around then as a human, he would have been able to feel the flame and go, oh, this is what they would have felt if I hadn't been there.
Right.
And so it's such a wonderful, wonderful gift that he gives up heaven to come down and be there with us. And we get to see him throughout the Old Testament in little glimpses, but then really get to see him and talk with him and know that he was walked on earth. It's, because of the nativity. And so that's one of the other wonderful gifts about Christmas. And then talking about this and seeing all these other glimpses. And it's a little bit of an odd transition, because one of the things that I always want to do is talk about those things that God has given us, and your passion for Jesus and sharing that love with other people is apparent. And he had to have given that to you early on in order to maintain being in ministry for so long, because sometimes it's not easy. It's very difficult to do that. And sometimes during the Christmas season, I think God can make it kind of clear what he wants us to do and places that passion, or renews that passion in us. So I like to ask my guests, what would you say to encourage someone to follow that passion that he has placed in their heart?
Yeah, I would say that we won't get it from just resting or avoiding the exhaustion or avoiding the tension or the chaos or the fire. We won't get it on our easy chair. We won't get it insulated from all responsibility or love. I think any meaningful life is going to mean that you love somebody, and that's going to bring pain. That's going to bring vulnerability. Or it's going to mean that you accept responsibility, which is going to bring stress.
Yeah.
And yet the way to receive both passion and peace is not to avoid loving or avoid responsibility, but it's to move toward an experience with Christ. And he's in the fire. He's in the world.
Yes.
He's between you and he says, go to the world and I'll be with you. And to me, the key to passion is that experience with Christ. And I think we experience him when we go to the world, or when we're willing to be in the fire. These guys were in Babylon. They weren't safe home with mommy and daddy. They were in a pressure cooker, and then they had these amazing experiences that people have been very passionate to tell or talk about. And so to me, the passion comes from Christ. I experienced him when I was 15 through great anxiety, through sleeplessness, through when I first started growing, I grew 6 inches in one summer from 5'10" to 6'4".
Oh my.
And I had all sorts of insomnia and tension, and I just kept praying, and I wouldn't tell anybody. I just encountered him in my mind's eye, and he had this smile and this sort of shaking his head like, that's not for me. And I didn't even know what else he meant, but I just knew he understood, and it wasn't from him, and he could lead me to something better.
Yeah.
And so immediately the response was energy and passion, that he was real to me. And that hasn't stopped. That was when I was 15. So now I'm almost 65. So what is that? 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's the source of the passion, and that can happen in a very messy world, because that's where he is, loving people. So when we go, he preserves us, and then he flows through us. And then we ended up experiencing him.
Yeah.
So, and it's such a good thought at Christmas time for sure, because Christmas is intensely stressful.
Yeah.
It's whatever the rest of the year is intensely at Christmas. And usually that means more stress, more people, more heartache.
It's just more of everything.
It's more of everything.
More of everything. More joy, more peace, more stress, more financial, more just a lot. So it is
and
definitely
a lot of it does fall
on,
I will say, on the ladies in our homes. A lot of times the ladies are the ones doing the meals and the gift wrapping and
the wrapping and the
planning and the hosting.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we are. At least in my house. My husband does help, not with the decorating, but my husband does help.
Yeah, it's just very tiring and very stressful.
Yeah, it can be. But I also like there's like this added joy and peace that comes along with just the celebration, because we so often don't necessarily take time to celebrate, which I think we should every now and again take that time to celebrate and take a break and celebrate when Jesus has walked through that fire. And I'm just also reminded so much of, he never promises that we won't have those, but he does promise to walk through it with us. And what a gift that is. So he can walk us through all those things that he wants us to do and walk with us and walk through Christmas and all of those other times. So, well, Dean, this has been delightful. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And if somebody wants to find out more about you or Eastside Church, what is one of the best ways to connect with you or the church?
So Dean W. at ecberg.org. EC as Eastside Church, Berg for Williamsburg.org. And then it's just Dean W. That'd probably be the easiest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And it's been an honor to be with you.
Yes.
Lisa.
And y'all worship on Sunday mornings?
Yes,
At
we
what
do.
time?
At 10:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it has been a pleasure and a delight, and I look forward to seeing more of you, I'm sure, at some time in the future. And thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks so much for joining me today on A Woman's Heart. I'm Lisa Granger. Were you encouraged by this powerful conversation with Pastor Dean Woodward? Remember, Jesus turns the fires that could destroy you into fires that warm you, because he is with you in every trial. You can find information on how to connect with Pastor Dean and Eastside Church in the show notes or on my website, lisagranger.com. You can also find the other shows in the Christmas series. Merry Christmas.